And we are back for take two. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patience. We are back now. And look at this, the thing works. Don't know, must have been, I've got one of those little Thunderbolt, what do they call them? Attachments where everything plugs in, because I've got 8,000 USB 3 ports that have to go into one little MacBook Pro. And we're back. So here we go. Let's see if the... Oh, look at that. The chat stays the same. Okay. Nice. Everyone's been keeping themselves busy talking about things that I won't read. Maybe, Adam, if you have your question again, maybe you punch that back in the old system. We can get to that before we do this grade. Let's see here. Let off. Okay. But no, I won't waste any more time because we've had a sufficient amount of that already. Thank you for sticking with us through our technical difficulties. Let's get into the show. Okay, so this is some footage. I have resized it as it came in with the shit size. And the very first thing that we're going to do, right, because we've got this image. Now this is, I think it was red footage, but this is this comes in red log film or, well, I mean, you can bring it in as anything. I would recommend bringing it in some sort of log environment. So that's why it looks so flat. You can look here at the old, whoops, why did I just get rid of that? How do I bring it back? This thing, you look at the old scopes, and you can see not a whole lot of density here. This is log footage. This is what it should look like when it comes in. Now, it's good, right? We've got a window here. First thing I'm going to notice, even before we put the LUT on to see what you would have been seeing on the day, is you got that window in the background. You're shooting into something that isn't quite that hot, which is good. This is probably because this is in some Nordic country where the cinematographers are aplenty and flow like water. And outside is not clipping, which is good, right? That's the very first thing that you wouldn't want to worry about in a situation like this. And everything else looks pretty good. They got the, we'll talk about the creative choices of having the light on indoors in a second, but should we turn on the LUT? So this is just as it is, as it comes in, standard. This is what you would have been looking at on the day. Now, what's the very first thing that we notice? Ladies and gentlemen, is we should probably zoom out a little bit so we can actually see this thing. And we pan this around. That's a little bit easier to see. Okay, it's orange. It's quite orange, the mix in color temperature. As I say, the light's on and it's daytime and it's at a very low level. I like the effect. I certainly do that all the time as well. We're getting very, very close to the upper limits out here of what's possible, but if we just roll back gain for a second, you can see it's pretty much all there. The thing is that you're not, there's really no detail in what's out there anyway, so you're not really saving much. Anywho, let's put that back to where it was. Scopes, redo that. Okay, so much as before, like last week, we're going to start with the same process. And this couldn't get repetitive and it can get boring, but these workflows are what make things happen fast. And I'm gonna try and just go a little bit quicker than I was before. You can't actually see those scopes, can you? If you bring them down there like that. I'm gonna try and just move a little bit quicker so that people, if you have your own footage, you can essentially do the same thing. So we've got the LUT. I put it in the first layer. That way you can see the difference when we on off the LUT. All I'm gonna do now is add a layer, and we're gonna start with our luminance, just our base exposure for where we want densities to fall, right? Because all of these densities over here, man, what is going on with the scopes in that? Is we can completely remap these. Well, not completely. We can't completely remap them, but in black and white, you'll notice just how hot that, basically anything above 80 looks. It's just starting to look very, very hot. And same as last week, we can do a bunch of different stuff, and there's lots of different ways to get it down. You can just put the gain down, right? Which is really, it's affecting everything, but mostly just the highlights is where you'll be able to see it, as that's just the gain. Then if we put that back to normal, you've got total offset, which is shifting everything, the entire structure down, right? That probably doesn't get the effect that we're after because, again, yes, it's getting the highlights down, but it's now crushing all the blacks, and you don't want to do that even if that's the look that you're going for. Even if for some reason you want that clipped look or that very dense black look, you definitely don't want to do that at the start. You want to be eliminating that information as far down the chain. So, say layer, if you're down here at layer 5, then that's your look. Then that is when you would want to go, okay, now let's get rid of those I'm trying to think of a situation where you would want that, but that's when you would want to do it. Okay, so we're back in here, and I generally favor the pre-gain just to bring that down to keep the blacks where they are. So this is pre-gain, and responds almost like just adjusting the gain, but it's just a little bit less impact on the shadows. So now that is where I would go there, and now I'm just gonna lower the contrast ever so slightly and then offset the whole thing down. That way, again, this is really about getting the density to the part of the image that we want. You know, you do the best that you can on set, and then really we want to get the meat, which is, in this case, it's already there. You know, you've got the contrast difference, the greatest contrast difference right here in the middle, and then to the darkness on the sides. So really, a lot of the stuff is already in that 10 to 40 area of interesting, and then you've peppered it around with some of those highlights. So we don't really have to do too much global shaping. It's just deciding, okay, this is where we're wanting this stuff. So that feels okay, and then I'll just offset the whole thing to take it down to black. Something in that world. And like that. The S-curve, just push. This is S-curve as opposed to contrast, just pushing a little bit of the edges farther apart. Something like that. Where you start to get, you know, you're already starting to get, what we'll do later on is, again, we want to draw people's eyes here, but still have enough information in the room to be able to go, okay, yeah, we're in a room. This is what I know is happening. We're definitely in this room. There's a window outside. This looks like normal day. But we're still trying to focus people into here. So I think that probably feels okay for now. Let's switch this back on, and then we'll take a look-see. So we've gone from this to the, ooh, that's probably a little bit dark. We probably overcooked the offset just a little bit. Let's try and just in the shadows. So this is just in the shadows now. Probably like that for now, right? Because we may choose to go darker, but again, we're going through so many layers at this point that we want to keep this for now. I mean, it's looking pretty good. I don't know. Do we like the orange? The verdict in the room? You'd probably want to say, you know, are we keeping this warm look? If we're not keeping that warm look, what's some different ways that we can eliminate that warm look and make it a little bit more neutral? We can, you know, you can use the wheels. The wheels is a little bit harder to show. Let's go to numeric. That way, if you're looking down here in this area, this is where you'll be able to see what my hands are actually adjusting, because I'm touching my balls here, not in a bad way. Okay, so that's colder. This is colder. And now we are looking. So before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after. Okay, so that, when we're talking minute adjustments, if you're looking at just gamma and gain, we didn't really block up the lift, only because, which is the shadows for translation, only because there's not, if you go back to the original grade, there's not a whole lot of orange in there, you know. This is the bummer with scratches. The scopes are slightly, let's try it. The scopes are slightly limited when compared to Resolve. But what happens, why isn't that RGB? Settings, RGB. Oh, supposedly that was RGB. There we go. Well, you can't really, it doesn't really help. Anyway, okay, well that was a bomb. This is so far so good. Anyway, there's not a lot of blue in there to begin with, or not a lot of orange, I should say. So when you go colder, you just have to look where the cool is, and then you're adjusting with the wheels. And again, the positive thing about those wheels is that I can just continue to look and see how much do we overcook this? That feeling pretty neutral there. And you can see it's starting to, I mean, you're noticing it most in that window outside is where that's a huge shift. And right here in this wall section, that's where the real action is happening. I mean, it's happening all over the place. Probably, again, maybe overcooked it, as I would tend to do. So let's even overcook it even more. See where it really starts going haywire. Something in there. And then we're just going to take that opacity back. And the opacity, like I said before in last week's live stream, the opacity thing is really coming from a place of client work. Because you'll get to a certain idea, One person will like it a little bit more blue, one person will like a little bit less blue. So it just helps rather than trying to say, oh, is there any way you can make it less orange? Oh, yeah, okay, I'll add a node. We'll turn this one off. Let me do this one. It just gets all a little bit murky and disgusting. So you can delete this one. The other good thing, especially if you're in the back of the room, this is strictly for if you're ever doing any color work, which some of you may find yourself in the future, or if you're a director, or if you're DP and the colorist is in the back of the room. This is a trick that I will often do and not tell anyone, is you just, there are buttons up here that don't really do anything. And if the client is looking at an outboard monitor, they'll be looking at a big screen in front of you. You can just sort of tap the buttons and say, okay, now I'm taking it down now, just taking it down ever so slightly. And let's just agree on a spot, and I just won't be changing anything. And then I'll switch to another shot and say, okay, now let's compare that versus contrast. Why didn't that work? Oops, I'm out of this thing. Where's my other? Oh, I hit the range button, that's why. Let's compare and contrast, and then you come back to the shot, and it's the way that you liked it. And people think that it's changed. So, I don't know. Just do it that way you will. But it happens. Okay. So we are, what are we looking at? Oh, we didn't even do the opacity. Let's take that down because it sort of looks like ass. Come back in here, layer 3. Something where you still, you still want a little bit of that glow, which the DP intended. And now if we look at it, maybe a little bit more. A little bit more, everybody. Okay. That's more neutral. Okay, now we just do the touch-ups. And this is really, there were people asking for more stylistic grades. And it always looks like shit when you don't shoot for that style. So rather than pushing things to the extreme, this is really about, these global changes can be applied to every shot, and this workflow is the same for every shot. So if you're doing, there are definitely methods, and maybe in the future I'll just go out and shoot some footage, particularly aiming at those methods. Like, say you want a very strong teal and orange look, there's definitely a defined way that you would go out and shoot for that material that would make it look the best. Whereas if you just sort of put a wash on something that wasn't meant to be like that, it can look a little bit gimmicky. So hence why this is fairly neutral stuff. Okay, now let's add a node, add a layer, sorry, and then we're just going to do our little mask, and we're going to do our inside-outside mask, and then we're going to sharpen, and then we're pretty happy with the way that this looks. So for canvas, I'm going to come in here, let's go freeform, and we're just going to do our little drawing around our person here, keeping it fairly loose. Like that. I'm going to soften that up, which is this one. Nope, that's size. Soften is that one. And then we are going to take it up a notch, just like this. We'll get rid of the overlay. And gamma is the one that really fucks you sometimes. Just a little bit of gain. What does that look like? Just punching up that one little area. We'll just add a little bit of contrast. Take it down, take it up. A little bit warmer. Like that. Okay, again, not much, but you can see in the scopes, there's just that little boost. Whereas here, and then there. And then maybe we'll just add a little bit of, where's our clarity? Let's see if we go crazy with the clarity. That's clarity gone crazy. And you can see that down here. This is that little clarity thing. You can defocus or clarity. It's not the same thing, but it's pretty close to the same thing. Close enough for our purposes. So I take that back. Just ramp it up a little. Something in there. Let's do it. And then, okay. That's drawing people into that specific little zone. Then we're going to do the exact same thing, but on the outside. And we will add another node, add a canvas. This time freeform. This time just a little bit hint of slightly bigger. Uh-oh. Flashing scratch screen means things are not good. soften, and then we will invert. And now is where we're on our finishing touches here. So let's go to, we don't want to affect that window. We may have to cancel out that window because we sort of like where those highs are. So what I'll do, add a mask, new, and then mask it this way. Like that. Get that white bit in there. It's important to see where the light bleeds, which is the one that you don't really want to touch that one. Then we'll soften. Okay, mask is in. Back to the canvas. Now if we take that down, see how it sort of eliminates if we go crazy. We're eliminating those two spots. And all I'll do is lift contrast and then offset. Ooh, getting very close to shitay. Probably more of the gamma situation. And we lose the overlay. Just that little bit of contrast. Ja, maybe too much. Let's just bump it back in. Whoops. Ta-da! Okay. Peter, what would your approach be to doing a really low contrast log look to this? Easy. This is a very easy one. Thank you, Peter. I would do... Did you ask for low contrast log? Some of my favorite requests. This is exactly what I would do. This looks fantastic. No, this is just I don't know. Low contrast log. I mean, you just simply take the contrast out. You would probably have to up the offset to compensate to get the skin back to exactly where you were looking for. But the low contrast log is like, that's yeah, exactly. Give them the old log. It's not a color stream because you're sort of taking the money and running, but it's a very easy thing to actually happen. Why is it looking so dark on my monitor over here? Let's just kick it up a notch. Take down the gamma. Whoops. And opacity. Yeah, I can't leave it like this. I can't leave it like this, people. It's going to be annoying. Anyway, okay. That's it. Adam, how much would you say using the Flanders monitor helps with this? Or is it about reading your scopes? No, the scopes are dog shit. You want a monitor. Like right now, I'm just looking at this little screen. And this is good. What is good? Again, I'm not selling Scratch. But what is good, and hopefully they introduce this into Resolve, is the ability to set up inside your settings. You can go to monitor, and you can set up your... Oh, you can't see because I'm in the way. Damn it. You can set up your interface monitor color space, and you can set up your color space that's traveling out. And I know that you can sort of do it in Resolve. It's just not as easy. So right now we're looking at sRGB on the image that you're probably seeing, whereas here is Rec 709. So the gamma is what the biggest thing that's going to be different between the two is there's going to be more crunch in the Rec 709 version. And I'm getting red here on the stream. Let me know if the stream starts shitting itself, because I wouldn't put it past me. Okay. Let's go to the next shot. Here we go. This looks completely oversized. I have some sizing issues. And we go to setup, scaling, fit width. Okay. And then we'll take this down. It appears quite large. Okay, I can't remember whose this is. But if this is somebody's and you're in the live stream, let us know. So, I don't know what this was shot, but it looks to be, it should be log. Okay. Here's a little note that can easily tell you whether or not you're working in the right color space. See how I just switched there from behind this little thing that you can't see. I should probably change this and swap to the other side. But I don't know how to do that on the fly. Behind this little thing here is either log film or linear. And you can see in her head. You see that line that's happening on the scopes? It's kind of thin and hard to see, but you can see in her head, it looks as though it's clipping, right? And this is when, man, if you're working with some people that are used to a certain format, the danger of red cameras or working with cameras that people aren't familiar with, they would bring this in, and just your typical thing, you just load this in and this is what happens. And they'd be like, man, you know, colorist starts shitting on the DP. You're not there. You're on some other job. Director's like, man, this, I don't remember it looking like this, but yeah, maybe the DP shit the bed. No. You go to the correct transform. And now this is what we should be looking at. Now we're in linear. And now those highlights, they're still there. It's not getting clipped off at all. So note to self. Make sure that the people at the end of the chain know what you've been doing the entire shoot, or else you're gonna get hosed. Okay, so let's see what happens if we put a LUT on this, even though I don't know the camera. I would imagine that the Arri LUT will work. Okay, this seems a little bit more what you would be doing, or what you would want to be looking at on set. Let's talk about the shot. First up, good things. Who can spot the good things? Because there are some good things here in terms of using the location. One good thing from a compositional standpoint is, anybody? I'm pointing to it here. You got the window that's lighting the frame. It's out of the frame. The window that is lighting the girl is out of the frame. That's a good thing, right? Because you don't have to compete against the background. You don't have to fill way more level in here so as this window doesn't blow out. Whereas if it was in the background, you'd have to do that. So good. Already thinking, okay, what can I use inside of a location? That's more location, text gouty, scheduling sort of things. You found the right angle. So that's good. Bad, I don't know why this particular frame was picked, because it's, you know, sort of an odd frame, because this thing is covering her face, is sort of orange with a bottle through it. It's a little bit weird. She looks a little bit sinister. You know, this could be, it's almost like, what was that movie with Kathy Bates? You know, she looks like she's about to, you know, perform some torture on someone with that orange. But good in that you've got it here. Compositionally, okay, she's smack bang in the, oh yeah, I see what you've done there. Good call. Yeah, Misery. But yeah, it definitely looks like it's POV out of a fridge. Okay. Well, then you've done really well, because you got the fucking height of the fridge perfect relative to that window. Or maybe that window's a little bit bigger and you're covering it up with the door. But very good. I like that. Okay, so again, that sort of changes things now that we're POV inside this fridge. You don't really have much room to be playing around with. But ideally, if you're going to have her in the center of the frame, you got to have her smack bang in the center of the frame. And this is a little bit short into the light. So I would be thinking, man, is there any way on the next take? This is probably what I would say to the director as well. Next take, is there any way that we can just shuffle her across, you know, half of a step? And that would just put this eye sort of in this spot. And then you lose this big ass boring area over here. Because there's not a whole lot going on over here. Or at least there's some background over here that will pull people away from a very flat wall. When you've got this thing, which is providing some depth, but this back here is just a lot of flatness, where if you just scooch her over just a little bit, you'd still have the same quality of light, you'd still have all of that, but it would just feel a little bit more balanced. And that's going center frame. If you really wanted to be crazy, you'd park her over here. And that would be a more traditional frame. So we got the good window light. There's not a whole lot of separation between level, and you can see that here in the scopes. Not a whole lot of separation between what's happening across the frame, what's happening to her face. Yes, it's quite hot, but I don't know. Let's just see. If we were there on the day and we thought to ourselves, man, this is quite hot. Let's see what would happen if we just lowered the exposure. Oops. I'll add a layer. That way we can see what we're doing. Come into numeric so everyone can follow along. And this is just the offset, right? So this is what you would imagine would be happening if you just up and down the iris. So I would say, if we were here and we were looking at the monitor, you want to worry about, like say you were looking through and you were looking at the false color, you'd want to worry about her skin first, because that would be what you could affect the easiest. And when I say what you could affect the easiest is you could put up a light outside of this window, you could fake this window the easiest, whereas filling up the whole room with ambient is going to be a lot harder. So you want to start with the easiest fix and the cheapest fix. So I'd be looking at the level of her skin And the cheapest way to do it would be to not change anything. So we want to find out if we're happy with her skin, where would that fall on the spectrum? Where should we be parked? Should it be somewhere in, I think it'd probably be somewhere in there, right? That feels about right. Looking at the scopes, that looks about right. So if we go, so I'd say we're over on her skin, right? But maybe we're balancing, trying to be over on her skin, but not under in the background. Maybe you're going for a high key, sort of brighter commercial, and you didn't have access to any lights. But I'd say this is ideally where we want to end up with her skin. So let's figure out a way to get there. We know that we want some separation between the background and the talent. We know how we're going to do that with our little double window thing. And in terms of balance, it doesn't look, I mean, looking at the scopes, looks pretty balanced as is. All these colors look fairly normal. Again, this is just more of a neutral thing. Probably a little bit punchy in the colors. This doesn't really scream Alexa. It screams something a little bit more crunchy. So let's see if we just, I'll take the saturation out at the end. Let's add a node. And let's just get our balance straight. Luminance. Let's see. I mean, you can immediately see without the color, it's just like these are very, very close. Skin and back of head. And you got those in there. We're not really jumping out with anything too crazy. Let's make it happen. Okay. Down in the gamma. That lift can come down like that. Just ever so up the lift, down the gamma. Up the lift, down the gamma. And offset down. Open up a little tiny bit. Come on. So that's where we were. That's normal. That's where we were. Normal. I mean, it's a big ass jump. But this is, again, personal preference. So that's a big ass jump. Let's get out of Illuma. Let's see how badly we overcooked it. See, that's the true test is when you come back from luminance, whether or not it looks like ass, because you've tricked your eyes, and that doesn't look like ass to me. That looks pretty good. And I would say the skin is probably right where we want it. Let's just say you were going for a slightly higher key look. So now we're going to be doing the opposite. So rather than, we don't really have to work on her skin, which is a big, huge bonus. But say you want to work on what's outside of her, we're going to do the exact same thing as we would. We're going to create a canvas, come in, freeform, go around her, like this, draw, back up a little, move this thing. And then we soften it off. And then we shrink it down a little. What happened there? Hit the wrong button. Let's just shrink it down a little, like that. We go back in. And we move this thing around. And then we move this slightly up, like that. Okay, invert. And now you want a little bit higher key on everything outside. But you don't want to, if you go straight with the gamma, I mean, that really punches up that window. You can see it's really punching up the window on the left-hand side. So what I would probably do, let's see what pregain does. Pregain's even worse. Offset. Offset gives us global lift, and then we're going to have to lift we're going to have to take down the shadows that we're lifting now. But instead of lifting just the highs or the gains with the offset, you've lifted everything. Then we adjust the shadows back to where they were. And let's do it again. Like that. Come on, sucker. And overlay off. Probably even juice it up a little bit more. Down. Up. Like that. That's where you were with a little bit darker in the background. That's where you are. Right? And if she's moving around, there's different ways that you can do this. Probably you'd want to wall off each side, and you could do rectangles from the left. So rather than doing just around her, but a shot like this, normally they open up the fridge, you mask on our overlay, you mask that on as she opens up the window, which you can just keyframe into the program, and then you're safe, right? Because these fridge shots are quite quick. But if we take that overlay off, that's what I would say from the balancing of it. Not terribly difficult. Of course, you're gonna want to go in. I don't know if you guys want to do this on every shot. It seems like, doesn't it get fairly repetitive in terms of problem solving? You're looking at overall balancing, what you should be doing, where you should be allocating the resources on the scopes, what you think feels balanced. The little luminance trick works every time for balancing. Then you're looking at what you want to be looking at versus what you don't want to be looking at and adjusting those levels accordingly. Then you're looking at very specific problem solving. And the very specific problem solving, that gets in when we're talking, okay, if we do the first pass with, say you're on a 30-second commercial, you do the first pass, say there's 12 shots in 30 seconds. You're going to do all 12 shots of this, where you're getting that balance right, where you can go from shot to shot to shot. Oh, we didn't do that one. We'll come back and do that one. You're doing the balancing bit, then you're going to go, okay, that took us, 4 hours. Now we have another hour and a half in the session. Let's go back and fix anything like that immediately jumps out at us. If we don't like this color green, let's key that. Let's get rid of the green. Let's lose the saturation from here, which we can do right now. Take this, saturation down like this, but probably we would want to keep it only to the orange, right? Because this is starting to affect too much. It's slightly better. It's just those colors, they're so poppy that it looks fake. So, I don't know, should we do one more, people? Or have we got this down? Do we need to discuss the exact same workflow in another one? Or are we happy? Questions from the audience? Nobody? Okay. Well, I'm going to take that then as, well, I'll just pretend that no one's watching, and we'll do one more. What else I got to do today? What time is it? 12 o'clock. Perfect. Okay. Come in here. Let's go back to this shot. Down to setup. Oh, we already fit the width. LUT. How do you know when to do linear? Linear, well, let's see. DPXs, when they come in to a program, a lot of the times they'll flag as log, which it's hard to explain. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. You basically have to look at the way that it's reacting to the LUT and look at the way that it's reacting to the adjustments that you're making. Like if you start to see that something is clipping when it doesn't look like it should be clipping, like in those scopes previously, let's go back to that shot actually. If you come back here, let's go to media, lin, let's go to log, which is what it comes in as. You see that it's clipping, like you definitely see clipped bits, but there's no clip bits here. That's when you can tell that, wait, something's wrong. So that's where you would generally want to go, okay, now I've got a transform problem. I've got a format problem, which is I need to fix. So that would be, and those are really only choices, right? It comes in as log or linear, or if you're doing raw, comes in as airy raw or red raw or whatever. Okay, I mean this looks fucking pretty good just as is. This is nice balance. Definitely got a little bit of a music video vibe. I don't know if I'd be changing too much here. We could probably, well, okay. I mean, this is something we could talk about. Just like when you have something good, how do we make it better? This will be fun. Okay. So let's add a layer. Where's my layers? Here we are. And let's look at the scopes. So we're definitely down in the blue, which is to be expected because you're getting that lift. And let's just see. Go into luminance. I'm going to talk less this one and just see if we can make this thing any better. And then you be the judge. So let's take a little bit of that out of it. And then we come down on the offset. I'll just describe what I'm doing. And something like that. And then a little bit of the old S-curve, like that. And then pregain down. Don't need that much level out of that light over there. And then we switch out of luminance. So that's just taking the milkiness and crunched it up a little bit, but it's also, you can see the saturation changes as you add crunch, especially in its face. It just gets more and more red. So we'll deal with that in a later node. Come into add a layer. Now let's get into this light. A lot of the times with the windows, especially even on like easy rig handheldy shots or dolly shots, all the better. You're going to want to draw the windows from the sources. So you want to motivate light this way. You wouldn't you wouldn't wrap the window around. I'll just show you. Easier to show. Okay, actually, let's look at why this shot looks cool. Look at the curve here. The bulk of it is all down here. This is the meaty bit, right? Where there's still lots and lots of detail, but it's all chunked up in this lower end. Note to self, make stuff look cool. That is what you're looking for, that density. So canvas and freeform. So you could draw the thing from this direction, right? Have this light that comes in like this. And you lift it up. Window light like that. Crunch it back down. Soften. Smaller. Take off overlay. And then you definitely want to loosen the opacity on that thing and soften the shit out of it. Let's bring back the overlay. Soften the hell out of it. And take away the overlay. Really, I should map a button to take the overlay away just for our purposes here. So you could come in from the window. I don't know. It just doesn't add as much contrast as what we can get if you come in from the source, because this is just like background fill area. So you really have to identify where the key light is and where you want to be bringing level from, because that just doesn't feel very nice, right? You're lifting a little bit of level and you're shaping it, and we can shape it by adding darkness on the outsides, but it just doesn't feel very good. So we'll take that layer off, and then we'll add another layer, and then we'll do the canvas from what I would say would be the right play, which is going to be from this sort of direction where this level's coming from. So let's run it down this way. Run it out of the frame. Oops. Oh no, the dreaded double touch. Soften. And then, oh, you see what our double touch has done up here? Ends up, as you soften, it goes all over the place. Damn it. Oh, what have we done over here? Let's just go up with it like that. Wow, this is a debacle of a canvas. The dreaded double touch, though, happens more than you would imagine. Okay, we're going to leave it. It's going to take too long to fix. So let's take the overlay off. Bump it up a little bit. That's it. We'll lose a little bit of that. So you're adding back there to the light. That's really the main one that's getting lit up. But then you're getting a little bit of reach into his face over here. And if you wanted to, you could come in and do just face tracks. But really here we're just looking at the light. Probably say it's not quite soft enough. So let's come into overlay. Let's add to the softness of the whole thing. Oh, you start to see how shitty that softness is because of that window. And then we're going to take the overlay off. And then what are we looking at? Okay. It's not half bad. Yabadoo. Okay. That's all right. Now let's come into, actually, let's do a global shift, because now as you start looking at it, then you're like, fuck, is that? Are you way off in color? Let's just see what blue looks like. It's blue. Back to 0. Why isn't it working? Kelvin 0. Just gonna take a little bit of it, take out a little bit down. We may be going a little bit crazy on the orangey blueness. feels a little bit better. Okay, then let's come in and add our outside final. Canvas. Freeform. Now we're just going to do these two, right? So if we do these two, our effect from before stays on their faces, but we take it off that back wall, which is sort of bright enough as it is. Oh no, computer, so slow. What is going on? A flashing screen of death. Okay. This is where you don't want to miss this one. Got it. Soften. Make it a little bit smaller. Like that. Maybe move it over just a little. And then we invert. And now we take away the overlay. And we come down with the old pregain. What happens? Ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. And okay, the effect is there, but it's not soft enough. You start to see that bleed. Let's come in, soften even more. Really reach. And take the overlay off. And then we just lose a little bit of the opacity. Now you could say that this was still a little bit hot over here for the level that would be coming through that window. Do you say that, good people? I think we should. Let's see what happens. Again, canvas, and again freeform, and again computer shits itself. Okay, we got that. Soften. Contrast out. Not too much. Contrast out a little. Offset down a bunch. Go back to overlay. Soften. Soften until you get it just right, and then take off the overlay. And then we come back in. Let's go bigger. And I go like that. What happened there? What is going on here, people? Okay. And a little bump in. And now we come back to this layer. So you're just taking, I mean, it looks quite warm as well, that light in there. And by darkening it, it takes the warmth out of it. Then we could probably take a little bit of warmth out with just the wheels. Use the blue. And our scopes are there. And then crunch it up a little. Let's see what that looks like. Hit me, people. See that orange though now is fucking bleeding into our... What's going on? I don't want that. What is going on? Oh, this is computer shitting itself. Okay. Ladies and gents, that's going to do it for this week on the live stream. You suffered through it. Well done for you. 44 minutes on version 2. Okay. Any questions before we go? That was a bit of a mixed bag. But you start to see the same workflow. It happens time and time again. It's not rocket science. And it's just touching up things, finding areas. Again, when the camera's moving, making it as broad as you can. And yeah, really, this is why it's so good for DPs to look at what's possible as a colorist, because the finding that density, finding out where you need to put things in order to make it easier for people down the line is only going to make you look better, especially as you move up and start to color with other people. That is where you can add your 2 cents saying, oh, you know, we tried to get the density there, it didn't really work. Maybe next time it will work. But if you can really pinpoint, And not to say that you would ever use the amount of detail. You know, would you ever be, are you ever eyeing on set like, oh, it's at 20 IRE and we got to get it down to 15 IRE? No, you're still going by eye and by feel, but you know in the back of your head, okay, this is where I can go in this direction. This is what I can do. This is what the plan would be. We don't have enough time. We're looking for the cheap fix. Instead of flagging off that wall, let's do something else. Let's spend our time making sure the key light is the right color temperature. You know, it just helps, especially when you have smaller crews and your time is limited and you're on the crunch. Like, what can I do later? What can I do now? And anyway, that's going to do it. Okay, next week on the podcast is it's a breakdown, and it should be a good one too. I'm looking forward to that because there's a big sort of lighting deal and lots of lights. It was supposed to be with 18Ks and gigantic condors everywhere, and then the production got the quote back from the grip and the gaffer. And the whole plan, after the tech scout, one day before we were shooting, all went down the shitter. And we had to come up with something a hell of a lot cheaper. But I still think looks pretty good. So that's going to be next week on the podcast. And many thanks. Also, fingers crossed that the live event tickets are available by then. And I can start putting them out there to you people so that we can start making some plans for the big LA push. And if you are interested in that matte box, let me know. Anyway, I'd rather give to someone that is in the Patreon group than someone that it's in perfect condition. Okay, that's going to do it. We'll see you in the next live stream.